The Line 6 Helix is a very deep product with a lot of features, and sometimes some of those features aren't simply just about making a tone great, but rather speeding up our workflow. Now, today I'm going to talk about two of what I feel are the most useful workflow features that we have on our Line 6 Helix and HX Stomp, and even Helix Native. You might be wondering what those two things are, and I have talked about these in the past in firmware update videos and whatnot when they were first introduced, but I am going to be discussing two things. Number one, favorites and user defaults. Now, these are two features that a lot of folks are well aware of and probably use, but I find that these videos are quite useful, and I get a lot of feedback from them from folks who maybe didn't realize that a certain feature was there, and it is worth recapping them so that everybody out there who watches can know they're there and can get full use of them and hopefully speed up their workflow and increase their enjoyment when using the Helix. So without further ado, let's head over. I'm going to be using Helix Native today to showcase these, but it's going to work the same whether you're using Helix or HX Stomp. All right, so here we are in an empty preset within Helix Native. It would work exactly the same if we were utilizing HX Edit. First, we're going to talk about favorites. Now, if we come over to our list here where all our different blocks live, we have this little menu that is called favorites and has a star beside it. When I click on that, there's nothing there. And some folks might go, well, what is that? That's empty. I don't know what that is, and I don't know what it's used for. Well, let's say that we have certain combinations that we like. Let's say we pull up an amp and a cab, and we pull up the Supro amplifier, and it comes up with these default factory settings. Let's say that we, always like this with everything on 5. I'm just using that as one example. And we really enjoy it this way with this particular cab, and we make our changes to whatever it is we want. Now, if I come in and right click on this, I can save this as a favorite. When I click that, it'll give me this option: save as favorite, add as a new favorite, or replace an existing favorite. Now, there is no existing favorite, so I can't click on that. So it's adding as a new favorite is my only choice. And it's going to be called Supro. So I'm going to hit save on that. Now, when we go to our favorites list, which it takes us right to, we now have this listed here. Now, I could come in here and rename this, clear it, or organize by category or alphabetical order my favorites. Obviously, I only have the one in the list right now, but let's rename it. And let's call it Supro 5 since we put all the settings on 5. Kind of a silly way to use it. But now, if I was to click out of this and get rid of that block, I can go back to my favorites and still have that there. When I click it, it calls back up the Supro amp cab block just as I had dialed it in. And it's always going to be there for us to very quickly add if that's a favorite setting of ours. Now, this works with everything. It doesn't just work with amp and cab. I could do the same thing with a distortion block. I could come over here and say, let's add a kinky boost, a mono kinky boost, and just with it set to 2.5, let's say. Right click on that, save as favorite. Now it's going to add as new favorite or replace an existing favorite. So I could overwrite my Supro 5, which I would probably not want to do since we have that there. So I'm going to go add as new favorite, and I'm going to save that. And we can go back over to favorites again, and I could call this Kinky Boost 2.5, just so that we can keep a proper order here. So again, now if I X these out, I could come over to my favorites and know, I really want the Kinky Boost going into the Supro 5 with all those settings that I really like. And that is how quick and easy it can make it to recall favorite settings of ours in different blocks. So this can be such a useful feature. So if there's blocks that we find we're always utilizing, such as myself, I absolutely love a stereo transistor tape. I like to set it at a quarter note repeat for my tempo. I usually like my feedback somewhere in the 20 to 25% range. Let's say that I want the spread down at 0 and I want the mix down around 30% with the trails on. I make all those settings. I come in here, I save that as a favorite. Again, I'm going to add it as a new favorite, and then I can come over. I can just leave it named transistor tape, or I could just come in here and name it anything I want, just something more generic, let's say delay. So again, now if I X all of those out and I know that those are settings I like, I come to my favorites, I hit Kinky Boost, move over to the next block, I hit the Supro and then I move over to another block, back to favorites. And I have that chain set up almost instantaneously with almost no work to those favorite settings. Doesn't mean I can't tweak them from there, but I have those saved. So that is an extremely useful feature and something that I think a lot of folks may not realize is there that could be very helpful for them in speeding up their workflow and creating presets. Now, another thing a lot of folks realize is when we pull up a particular block, and let's come back to our Supro again, it comes up with what are considered factory default settings. And you can see here, drive at 6.5, bass at 5, tone at 9.2, etc., etc. Well, let's say we really like this model, but we don't particularly like those settings. Let's say that we particularly like this cab, but we want to put a 160 ribbon on the cap edge, 2 inches back with no angle on the microphone. And we really enjoy that setting. And again, let's say we just, for argument's sake, like everything on 5. I'm not saying that this is going to actually sound good, but let's say that we want those settings to be recalled every time we just come to our amp cab list and pull up the Supro. We can right click on this block after we've made the settings and we can hit user default. Now, what's going to happen is we X that out. When I come not to my favorites list anymore, but to my amp cab block, and I hit the Supro model, you'll see that it will now open with the settings that I prefer immediately. I don't have to go in and change everything to 5s and change my microphone around. Everything is going to come up just the way I like it. No matter how many times I X that out, go back here and pull it up, it's going to come up with my settings, my user default settings rather than the factory settings. Now, what if somebody gets nervous and says, well, great, now I don't know what the factory settings are. What do I do? Well, we simply come back up to the same block, we right click it, we hit factory default, and you'll notice now when I X this out and I choose that again, it now comes up with the factory default settings that used to come up with instead of what I dialed in. And again, I could come back and change this all again if I so desired and go through the whole motion again of saving a user default. And now again, when I pull up that Supro, it's going to come up with those settings that I put in there. So really there's no harm in doing this because we can always go back to that factory default where it's going to come up with the factory default settings. So there is another extremely useful workflow feature. All right, so there you have a quick look at 2 of what I feel are the most useful workflow features in the Helix, both the favorites and the user defaults. And I think it would be a real shame if we did miss out on using those 2 very powerful features. I really hope you found that useful, and I hope it helps. I hope it helps to speed up your workflow and just make your enjoyment of using your Helix and HX Stomp that much better. So I'm going to leave you today with a video of my Divided Duo Ultimate preset from the Line 6 Marketplace. I hope you enjoy it. I'll have the link below to it if you are so inclined. This is a real favorite preset of mine. I enjoy playing this a lot. Very inspiring set of tones, multi-snapshots with a full array of effects. Hope you enjoy it as well if you're so inclined and want to give it a try. The link is below. So thanks so much for tuning in. Again, please like the video, share it with anybody you think would get some use or enjoyment out of watching it. Also, please subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. I'll be back really soon with some more. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Ciao for now.